As you guys know, UFC 320, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira is right around the corner, and this UFC pay-per-view will be taking place in Las Vegas in the T-Mobile Arena. And overall, the card is looking pretty stacked. I would give this card like a 8.5 out of 10. And yeah, there's a lot of good matchups on this card. Obviously, you have two title fights, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira headlining the card, and Corey Sandhagen versus Merab Dvalishvili being the co-main event. And you have a lot of good matchups like Yuri Prochazka versus Khalil Roundtree, which is the most interesting fight on the card for me. And overall, like I said, this is a really good pay-per-view, and in this video, we're going to be breaking down every single fight happening on this card. So without further ado, let's hop straight into my predictions. Opening up the card, we have Veronica Hardy versus Brogdon Walker, and for this matchup, I'll be picking Veronica Hardy to win by decision. I think Veronica Hardy, she's been showcasing some good striking and some good patience. Her footwork and countering ability is looking pretty sharp as well. So I think she'll be able to pick apart Brogdon Walker at range and win this fight by a decision by just pushing a pace and just landing more volume on the feet. Next fight in the card, we have Ramiz Brahimaj versus Austin Vanderford, and I'll be picking Austin Vanderford by decision. I think Austin's wrestling base gives him a clear path to victory in this matchup. I think his top pressure in the wrestling can definitely neutralize the submission threat of Brahimaj. His top control is very good, and he usually avoids taking unnecessary risk in the wrestling. That's why I'm so confident with him being a wrestler against more of a submission artist, because he doesn't really take too much risk. He's more about controlling you on the ground and just keeping himself safe. Obviously, Brahimaj, he is dangerous off his back, but I think Vanderford's experience should be enough to win him a nice decision victory in this matchup. But next fight on the card, we have Punahele Soriano versus Nikolay Veretennikov. And I think Punahele Soriano is going to win by a TKO. First of all, Soriano, he hits like an absolute truck. That's why I think he's going to win this matchup by TKO. He has the power in his hands to knock out Veretennikov, and he starts really fast in the first round. That's why I think he'll win by a first round TKO. Veretennikov, he is tough, but he does leave openings when he gets into striking exchanges. So I think if Soriano, if he can just close distance, let his hands go, let his striking instincts take over, he can overwhelm him early and get that first or second round TKO. Next fight on the card, we have Patchy Mix versus Jacob Wiklax. Obviously, we all know Patchy Mix, what happened to him recently. His debut got spoiled against Mario Bautista at UFC 316, I believe. And he's looking to bounce back. And the UFC has matched him up where he is welcoming in another champion from a different promotion. I believe Jacob, I think he's from KSW, if I'm not mistaken. And he's going to be making his debut in the UFC. I do think that a lot of people, they're going to be picking against Patchy Mix in this matchup because of how stiff and just he wasn't really loose when he fought Mario Bautista. I think Mario Bautista, he's just that good to make a fighter making their debut like Patchy Mix just freeze up in front of him. And Mario Bautista, he looked really good in that matchup. His kickboxing looked excellent. And I think that was just a case that Patchy Mix, he got his debut against a really high level bantamweight. So when you're thinking about Patchy Mix, he's finally got that UFC experience. He's in the UFC. I'm pretty sure he got humbled. He should have fixed a lot of holes in his game and did some soul searching to where I think that he might be ready to start getting on a win streak in the UFC. Obviously, the UFC, they really don't think that highly of Patchy Mix since he did lose to Mario Bautista in his debut. a lot of people were riding on him to win that matchup. Like, I swear, he probably destroyed a lot of people's parlays when he fought Mario Bautista. But back to this matchup, I think I'm going to be picking Patchy Mix to win by decision. Jacob, like I said, he's from a different promotion, and he's just like Patchy Mix when he was making his debut. He never fought the UFC competition. I think Patchy Mix has finally put himself in a place where he's fighting high-level UFC fighters. And I think Patchy Mix is gonna spoil the debut of Jacob Wikilax. I think Patchy Mix, he needs to get his grappling going, of course. He did not implement his grappling in the Mario Bautista fight. But if he implements his grappling in this fight, I think he wins by a decision. But if he looks exactly how he looked against Mario Bautista, then he's probably going to lose this matchup. But I think Patchy Mix, he won't have that much pressure. This is a fight on the prelims. His fight at UFC 316, that was like the feature fight of the entire card. There were a lot of eyes on that matchup, and I think he just froze. This matchup, there's less pressure, and he's just expected to just go out there and just do his thing. And I think Patchy Mix, he's going to win this fight by decision. Next fight in the women's bantamweight division, we have Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos, and I'll be picking Macy Chiasson to win by a decision. I think Macy's size advantage and reach advantage will play a major role in this matchup. She's effective at keeping her opponents at range. She's good with her jab. She has some good clinch work. And I think that range is really going to stifle the game of Yana Santos. So I think Macy Chiasson is going to control most of the exchanges on the feet. And I think she'll win a solid 29-28 decision. Next fight on the card, we have Daniel Santos versus Ju Sang Yu. Ju Sang Yu, he's the one who knocked out Jekka Seregi with that picture perfect left hook at UFC 316. I believe it was on the prelims. And I think that he'll win this matchup by a TKO as well. He has some power in his hands for sure, and his striking is so high level, and he has strong finishing instincts. I think Daniel Santos, he tends to take risk defensively, which can backfire against accurate power punchers. I think Ju Sang Yu, he has the power, the precision, and just the right timing in his shots to put away Daniel Santos in the first round, maybe a second round TKO. But moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Farid Basharat versus Chris Gutierrez, and I'll be picking Farid Basharat to win this fight by a TKO. I think Farid, he's going to be going into this matchup with a speed advantage and a striking advantage too. So when you have those two skills and you have a stationary opponent like Chris Gutierrez, I think Farid Basharat, he's going to just dance circles around Chris Gutierrez. I think Farid Basharat has the tools to push the pace and land a lot of volume on the feet. So I think that will definitely set him up for a round 3 TKO. Next fight on the card, we have Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Muniz, and I'll be picking Edmund Shabazian to win by TKO. I think Edmund Shabazian in the first round, he is a world beater. I think he's going to knock him out in the first round. I think his striking is going to be so good in this matchup. And Muniz, he does have some lapses in his striking defense. So if Edmund Shabazian, as long as he can keep the fight standing, I think that he can land something big and win by a TKO in the first round. Next fight on the card, headlining the prelims, we have Atiba Gauthier versus Ozzy Diaz, and I think this is a no-brainer pick. I'm going with Atiba Gauthier by a first round TKO. I did a whole video a while back detailing Atiba Gauthier's career and assessing his potential in the UFC, and lately that video has been aging so well, and I think Atiba Gauthier, after knocking out Ozzy Diaz, he needs to get a step up in competition. I think someone like a Christian Leroy Duncan, even though I heard that Christian Leroy Duncan, he was fighting Marco Tulio. So I think Atiba Gauthier, he needs someone in that range of the middleweight division. maybe like a Michelle Pereira, someone in that range in the middleweight division. But like I said, I think Otto Gautier, he's going to absolutely run through Ozzy Diaz and win by a first round TKO. Now for the main card, opening up the main card, we have Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov, and I'm picking Joe Pyfer by TKO. I think Joe Pyfer has proven himself to have that knockout ability, and his power, physicality, and composure is going to be a very, very tough challenge for Abus Magomedov. I think if Abus Magomedov wins this matchup, he definitely will deserve a huge step up in competition because this is a nightmare matchup for him. Abus Magomedov, he is a very slow fighter, and Joe Pyfer, he is the exact opposite of that. He's very athletic, very explosive, and he has power in his hands. So I think Joe Pyfer is going to knock him out easy while Abus Magomedov is like rushing into an exchange. And let's be honest, Joe Pyfer, he can win this fight however he wants. I can see Joe Pyfer winning by a decision because Abus Magomedov, his gas tank depletes so much as he goes longer in his fights. I can see Joe Pyfer winning by a submission. Joe Pyfer's grappling is kind of underrated in the middleweight division. And of course, Joe Pyfer, he has the ability to knock him out. So I would not be surprised if any of those outcomes happen in this matchup. But I will be picking Joe Pyfer to win by a knockout in the first round. Next fight on the card, we have Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Salau. And I think Yusuf Salau is going to win this matchup by decision. I think Zalau's volume and movement will give him a style that will frustrate Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett is going into a similar matchup like Lerone Murphy. I think Yusuf Zalal is basically the same archetype of fighter like Lerone Murphy. I think Lerone Murphy is a little bit more technical and a little bit less evasive. Yusuf Zalal, a lot of people thought that he was just running from Calvin Kattar in the third round when he fought him. But I think Yusuf Zalal, his footwork, his ability to stick and move and just get out the way is going to really pay dividends, especially against a one-dimensional fighter like Josh Emmett. We all know that Josh Emmett, he's just really looking to line up that huge overhand. And when you really have that one move in your bag, which does work well, Josh Emmett, he has some career highlight KOs, but it's not really a consistent thing that gets him wins. So I think Yusuf Zalal, he's going to avoid the power of Josh Emmett and win by decision. Another thing you have to realize is Josh Emmett is getting older. He's fighting a younger opponent in Yusuf Zalal, so the speed advantage is going to be a big factor in this matchup. Josh Emmett, he won't be able to line up that overhand as well against a more faster, evasive opponent in Yusuf Zalal. But moving on to the feature fight of the card, Yuri Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree. And this fight is my favorite fight on the card. Like I mentioned before, this is my main event. And my last video, I did a full breakdown analyzing the matchup between Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Rountree. Of course, I'm not going to be going as in-depth as I was in the video, but to just give you guys a quick summary of my points, I just think that Khalil Rountree, he doesn't do good against wild strikers. If you watch his fight against Johnny Walker, Khalil Rountree, he got knocked out against a wild striker in Johnny Walker. And I think Yuri Prochazka parallels Johnny Walker in a lot of different ways. So since Yuri Prochazka, he's so chaotic, he's so unpredictable, and he has that relentless forward pressure. Even though Khalil Rountree is so dangerous with his Muay Thai, and his best path to victory is definitely that leg kick and the body kick, I think Khalil Rountree's success in those moments, it highly depends on him controlling the pace of the fight. But if Khalil is constantly operating off his back foot, if he's constantly moving backwards, can he implement that same Muay Thai style? Because Yuri Prochazka, he's going to be putting on that pressure. So I can definitely see a reality where Khalil Rountree catches Yuri Prochazka and just knocks him out cold. But I think more realistically, I can see Yuri Prochazka putting on that pressure, putting on that pace, and building up to a TKO in the third round. But whoever wins this matchup, they're definitely fighting the winner of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Obviously, we do have to factor in Carlos Oberg, but whoever wins this matchup at 320 is definitely going to be in that title picture coming up. But now for the co-main event, we have Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen, and I think Merab will win by a decision. I think Merab's cardio, his relentless wrestling pace, will make him one of the hardest fighters that Corey Sandhagen has ever fought. Corey Sandhagen, he does have a path to victory in this matchup. Obviously, he has a lot of powerful strikes in his bag that he can pull from, like his elbows and that jumping knee. But realistically, I think Merab, he's just going to overwhelm him and win a decision. I think that grind of Merab's constant pressure, constant takedown attempts, constant clinch work is just going to sap the energy of Corey Sandhagen. And I can definitely see this being a close matchup. Don't get me wrong. Merab hasn't really been dominating his opponents like completely other than like Sean O'Malley. But I just think Merab, who just win enough rounds to get that decision. I can see a 48-47 decision going to Merab, just like the Umar fight. And yeah, I just see Merab just using that constant pressure, that constant grappling pace, and just winning this fight by a close decision. Now for the main event between Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira, I will be picking Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight by decision. Magomed Ankalaev is one of the most well-rounded fighters in the light heavyweight division. He has technical striking and he has good top control in the wrestling. However, in his last matchup against Alex Pereira, he was not able to take down Alex Pereira at all. So that could be a factor going into this matchup because Alex Pereira, he knows that he can stuff the takedowns of Magomed Ankalaev, so he might be able to open up on the feet because I do think that was Alex Pereira's biggest problem in their first matchup was that Alex Pereira, he was not letting his hands go. Obviously, he was worried about the threat of the takedown. That's why he didn't let his hands go. So I think this matchup is going to be harder to predict compared to the first time they fought. But whoever wins, I think is going to make a more dominant showcase than they did in the first matchup. I just think Magomed Ankalaev is going to win a more convincing decision. However, Alex Pereira, he could come out here, stuff the takedowns, and knock out Magomed Ankalaev. I can definitely see a TKO from both fighters. I do think the knockout threat is a little bit more greater for Alex Pereira. But in my personal opinion, I just see Magomed Ankalaev having a more dominant version of the first fight. Alex Pereira, he could have learned, he could have evolved his game. We've been seeing Alex Pereira kind of lock in this fight compared to his last matchup against Magomed. So there could be some things that he could have changed, some new insight he could be implementing into his game plan now. But I just think Magomed Ankalaev is going to also be locking in, and I can see him just winning a more dominant version of his last matchup between Alex Pereira. So that's going to be it for this video. As usual, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.